Welcome to the Daily Upgrade with Nathan and Nora.
Get quick, actionable tips to become your best self.
From mastering routines to building habits.
We share practical advice to boost productivity and mindset. No fluff, just results.
Tune in regularly for motivation and strategies to upgrade your life.
Ever feel like you're juggling a million things, work deadlines and family commitments and that to-do list that just seems to keep growing? It's so easy to feel like we're constantly on call, expected to say yes to absolutely everything and everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely a common experience, especially these days, in today's fast-paced world. And it's not just how we feel either. There's actually a cognitive theory behind it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called cognitive load theory, and it suggests that our brains can only process so much information at once.
So like our mental bandwidth has limits.
Yeah.
And every time we say yes to something, we're adding to that.
Exactly. Each commitment, each task, each request we agree to, it all takes up mental space. And when we overload that space, that's when we start to experience the fun stuff, the
That's
stress, the burnout, the decreased productivity.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know for me, when I'm feeling super overwhelmed, it's hard to focus on anything. And even those little simple tasks feel like climbing Mount Everest.
And it's not even just about feeling overwhelmed. It goes deeper than that. There are real consequences to constantly pushing our limits.
Oh, wow. So physically.
Yeah, our bodies react to this overload with a stress response. Cortisol levels increase, sleep patterns get disrupted, and over time, this can lead to some serious health issues.
So it's not just our mental capacity that's affected, it's our physical well-being too.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Think about it this way. When you're constantly stressed, your body is in the state of high alert, and that takes a toll big time. It's like running a marathon every single day. Eventually, you're going to hit that wall.
Okay, so we've established that saying yes to everything is a recipe for disaster. What's the alternative then? Just become a hermit and say no to everything.
Haha, of course not. It's not about becoming a recluse. It's about being strategic with our yeses and understanding the power of no. That's what we're going to explore today. Drawing insights from this article, the power of saying no. It's like a roadmap to reclaiming our time, our energy, and our sanity.
Okay, a roadmap, you say. I'm ready to hear more about this. Because honestly, saying no can feel really uncomfortable. Especially when we're basically conditioned to be people pleasers.
It's true. Societal expectations often push us to be agreeable and accommodating, especially I've noticed for women.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating is that when we shift our perspective and see no, not as a negative, but as a tool for empowerment, a whole new world of possibilities opens up.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do we make this shift? How do we start seeing no as a superpower rather than a sign of weakness?
Well, it starts with understanding the hidden costs of saying yes too often. The article highlights the negative impacts on things like productivity, mental health, and even our relationships.
Yeah, I could see how constantly spreading ourselves thin would take a toll on our relationships, for sure.
Exactly. When we're overcommitted, we're not truly present for the people we care about. We might be physically there, but our minds are somewhere else worrying about all the things we have to do.
That makes sense. So saying no isn't just about protecting our own time and energy. It's about showing up more fully for the people who matter most.
Precisely. And when we start setting those boundaries, we create space for more meaningful connections, deeper conversations, and stronger bonds.
I like where this is going. So we're not just talking about saying no to tasks or obligations. We're talking about saying yes to the things that truly matter, like our well-being and our relationships.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about where we direct our energy and our attention. And when we do that, we start to reclaim a sense of control over our lives.
Okay, I'm starting to see the power in that. But how do we actually implement this in our daily lives? How do we say no gracefully without feeling guilty or damaging relationships?
That's where the article offers some practical strategies, and that's what we'll be diving into in the next part of our conversation. We'll explore specific techniques for saying no effectively in both professional and personal settings.
I'm eager to learn those techniques because I think many of us struggle with this. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after a short break. All right, so we talked about the why saying no is so important for our well-being, our productivity, and our relationships. But now let's get to the how. How do we actually say no without feeling like a jerk or totally burning bridges?
Yeah, that's the tricky part, right? And this article gives us some really valuable strategies for navigating this whole delicate dance. It all starts with clarity, being crystal clear about our own priorities and our limits.
Because if we don't even know our own boundaries, how can we expect other people to respect them?
Exactly. It's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded without a map. When we have a strong sense of what matters most to us, it becomes way easier to figure out which requests actually align with our goals and which ones don't.
So step one is self-awareness.
Got it.
But then comes the actual saying no part. Any tips on how to do that gracefully?
Well, the article suggests being direct but also respectful. It's not about being harsh or dismissive. It's about clearly stating your position while still acknowledging the other person's request.
So instead of like beating around the bush or making excuses, we should just be upfront and honest.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated either. Simple phrases like, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not able to take that on right now, or I'm already committed to other priorities at the moment. Those are clear, concise, and respectful.
I like that. Straightforward, but still considerate.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine the tone we use is important too, right?
Absolutely. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. A calm and confident tone can convey respect and understanding even when you're saying no.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about situations where we can't completely say no, but we need to set some limits or boundaries?
That's where the concept of yes, but comes in handy. It's a way of acknowledging the request while also setting parameters around your involvement.
Can you give an example of how that might work in practice?
Sure. Let's say a colleague asks you to take on a new project, but you're already swamped. Instead of a flat-out no, you could say something like, yes, I'm happy to help with this project, but I can only dedicate a couple of hours a week to it.
So you're essentially saying yes to the request, but also setting clear boundaries around your time and energy.
Exactly. And this approach can be really helpful in maintaining those positive relationships. It shows you're willing to contribute, but you're also being realistic about your capacity.
I can see how that would be super useful in a work environment where collaboration is so important, but so is managing our workload. Are there any other strategies from the article that stand out to you?
One that I found particularly insightful is the idea of offering alternatives. Instead of just saying no, we can suggest a different approach or recommend someone else who might be a better fit for the task.
That's a great way to be helpful while still staying true to your own priorities. It's like saying, I can't do this, but here's what I can do, or here's who might be able to help.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from a simple no to a more collaborative, solution-oriented approach. And it can often lead to unexpected opportunities or connections.
Okay, these are all really helpful tips. But I imagine it still takes practice to become comfortable with saying no, especially if we're so used to people-pleasing.
You're right, it's a skill, like anything else. It takes time and effort to rewire our thinking and develop new habits. And it's important to be patient with ourselves. There will be times when we say yes, when we really wanted to say no, and that's okay.
It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. The key is to be mindful of those moments, learn from them, and keep practicing. The more we flex that no muscle, the stronger it becomes. And the rewards are definitely worth the effort.
Speaking of rewards, let's talk about the positive side of saying no.
Yeah.
We touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth emphasizing. When we say no to the things that drain us, we create space for the things that energize us.
Absolutely. It's like decluttering our schedules to make room for what truly matters. And that can have a ripple effect on every aspect of our lives.
So it's not just about avoiding burnout, it's about creating space for creativity, joy, and those deeper connections.
Precisely. When we're not constantly running on empty, we have more energy and focus to devote to the things we're passionate about. Whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply enjoying some quiet time for reflection, saying no opens up a world of possibilities.
I love that. It's about shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of feeling like we're constantly behind, we start to see all the opportunities that are available to us when we're not overcommitted.
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering. It allows us to take control of our lives and design them in a way that aligns with our values and aspirations.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling inspired to start incorporating these strategies into my own life.
Mm.
But before we move on, I want to address one more thing.
Yeah.
The article also mentions the importance of setting boundaries with technology. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Of course. In today's hyper-connected world, it's so easy to feel like we're always on call. Emails, social media notifications, text messages. It's a constant barrage of information competing for our attention.
And it can be really hard to disconnect, especially when we feel this pressure to be available 24/7.
Exactly. But setting boundaries with technology is crucial for protecting our time, our energy, and our mental health. It's about reclaiming control over our digital consumption instead of letting it control us.
So what are some practical tips for doing that?
One simple but effective strategy is to just turn off those unnecessary notifications. Do you really need to know every time someone likes your Instagram post or comments on a Facebook thread?
Probably not. And those constant pings can be really distracting, especially when we're trying to focus on something important.
Exactly. And it's not just about notifications, it's about setting intentional boundaries around our screen time in general. Creating tech-free zones in our homes, establishing designated times for checking email and social media, and scheduling regular digital detox periods can make a world of difference.
So it's about being mindful and intentional with our technology use, rather than just passively consuming whatever comes our way.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about how and when we engage with technology so it serves us rather than enslaves us.
That's a powerful way to put it. And I think it ties back to the larger theme of this conversation, the power of taking ownership of our lives, whether it's saying no to requests, setting boundaries with technology, or simply making choices that align with our values. It's all about reclaiming our agency and designing a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Beautifully said. And that sense of agency is at the heart of the no revolution. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we spend our time, our energy, and our attention. And when we start exercising that power, we unlock a whole new level of freedom and possibility.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I'm already feeling inspired to start implementing these strategies in my own life. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the ripple effects of saying no. How does this shift in mindset impact not just our own lives, but also the world around us?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more depth in the final part of our conversation. We'll delve into how saying no can ripple outwards, influencing our relationships, our work, and even our sense of purpose. Stay tuned.
We've talked a lot about all the personal benefits,
Mhm.
like how saying no can reduce stress and make us more productive, and how it can even strengthen our relationships. But you mentioned something earlier about ripple effects, like how this mindset shift can have a bigger impact. What did you mean by that?
It's really interesting how something as simple as saying no can have these effects that go way beyond just us. It's like when you drop a pebble in a pond, the initial impact might be small, but those waves just keep spreading outward.
I like that analogy.
Mm.
So how does this no ripple effect actually play out in the real world?
Well, let's start with relationships. When we're constantly overcommitting, we're not really present for the people we care about. We end up distracted, exhausted, maybe even a little resentful.
Yeah, because we're spread so thin trying to please everyone except ourselves.
Yeah.
That's like running on fumes. And that's not exactly a recipe for healthy connections.
Exactly. But when we start saying no to things that drain us, we free up space for the relationships that truly matter. We're more present, more engaged, more able to give our loved ones the time and attention they deserve.
So it's not about becoming unavailable or like pushing people away. It's about making sure we have the energy and capacity to show up authentically in our relationships.
That's it. And those ripple effects, they extend to our work too. When we say no to tasks that don't really align with our strengths or priorities, we make room for work that actually excites us and lets us excel.
Yeah, because we're not bogged down by all that busy work or those unnecessary commitments. Instead, we can focus on the stuff that uses our unique talents and makes a real impact.
And that focus leads to better results, more creativity, and just a greater sense of fulfillment in our work. It's a win-win for both us and the organizations we work for.
I love how saying no can make things more positive and productive for everyone. It's not just about individual gain. It's about contributing to a greater good.
And it goes even deeper than that. When we're clear about what we're saying no to, it actually makes it even clearer what we're saying yes to. It helps us define our values, our priorities, our own unique contribution to the world.
It's like we're creating our own path,
Yeah.
one that's aligned with our passions and purpose.
Exactly. And when we walk that path with intention and clarity, we can inspire others to do the same. It's a ripple effect that can transform not just our lives, but the lives of everyone around us.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Mm.
I'm starting to see saying no as more than just a time management thing. It's like a philosophy for a more intentional and fulfilling life.
It's a real shift in perspective with some pretty big consequences. It's about taking charge of our choices, setting those boundaries, and making space for what really matters.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. We spent all this time talking about the power of no. But in the end, it's really about saying yes to something bigger. Saying yes to ourselves, to our values, to the life we want to create.
It's a journey, for sure. One of self-discovery and empowerment. And it all starts with a simple word: no.
Thanks for joining us today in this exploration of the power of no. We hope you've learned something valuable and feel inspired to start saying yes to a more fulfilling and authentic life.